Hello everyone and welcome to our weekly shir in English here at Breast of Israel. This shir is dedicated to the full and complete healing of our mentor and teacher, the great tzaddik, the great pious Rabbi Shalom Arush, who we're all praying that will heal soon and feel well soon. In the meantime, I'm subbing in for the rabbi and I hope that you will apologize. I am a poor substitute, but at least I'll try and do as best as I can. We're going to speak today about some actual topics that have occurred recently here in Israel, things that are relevant also for us to understand and to enlighten us more about Yiddishkeit, about how we're supposed to look at ourselves as Jews, as God-fearing Jews, and as Jews who want to preserve the Torah and the mitzvahs. Something recently happened which actually started today, and we're talking here on Sunday, the 21st day of the month of Second Adar 5784. Last week, the High Court in Israel gave a special verdict saying that from now on, the state is not allowed to postpone the army service, the military service of people who are learning Torah, and people who are learning Torah not only are obliged to be recruited into the army, you are not also allowed to finance them. The government is not allowed to help the people who are learning Torah by giving them stipends or by financing them. Now, we're talking here about something which is very shocking because the reality is, if we're going to speak about the ramifications, what this means is that the state of Israel has actually said that we don't want any more part in the Torah being learnt by the yeshiva world. It has nothing to do with us. And from now on, we're going to look at all the people who have not been recruited as, so to say, we're going to be looking at them as criminals. We can recruit them. We may take them in forcefully, etc., etc. Now, there's something which we must understand about our perception as God-fearing Jews, as frum Jews. Judaism, Yiddishkeit, has always been a religion, not a nationality. For 2,000 years, when we lived in exile, we did not live in the state of Israel or in the land of Israel, and nevertheless, we were Jews. Even today, you have American Jews, Jews who live in America. You have Jews who live in Canada, who are Canadian Jews. You have Jews who live in Australia and New Zealand, in South Africa, who are South African, Australian, New Zealand Jews. Being Jewish doesn't mean you have to live in Israel. Being Jewish doesn't mean you have to be an Israeli citizen. And the reason is that the nationality, Israel as a nation, is not part of Judaism. Israel is the Holy Land. The reason Israel is the Holy Land, because this is the land where you can only in the land of Israel can you commit some of the commandments of the Torah. Can you actually do many things which are related to our Torah life? Can you only build a temple here? The kingship of the Messiah shall be here in Israel. Israel is a holy land because it is part of our religion. It is part of our Judaism. We're not talking about something that stands on its own. Nationality has got nothing to do with Judaism. Judaism is a religion. The land of Israel is holy due to religious reasons, as a religious subject, as a religious aspect, not as a national aspect, which means the sanctity, the uniqueness of the land of Israel derives from the Holy Torah. And without the Holy Torah, we have nothing. So by the state of Israel disconnecting itself from the world of Torah, this is something which is very, very, very difficult to comprehend and to understand, because we are talking here about an absolute rift, which I hope shall be mended soon. Now, this is coming to teach us as frum Jews, as Jews who love the Torah, who love Hashem, who love Hashem's commandments. It is coming to teach us something, though, about how we're supposed to behave. Because as we can see, we are being bombarded from all different directions by people telling us that the way of our way of life is wrong, that we should stop learning Torah, that we should be more mixed within the Israeli population, that we should relent and we should let go of our unique clothing, of our different ideas, of our ideologies. As people say, stop learning so much Torah. Start learning more into universities, learning different subjects that have got to do with day-to-day modern life. In the first paragraph of the Shulchan Aruch, the Codex of Jewish law, the Ramah in chapter 1, paragraph 1, says a key guideline to our Judaism. Thou shan't be embarrassed from those who mock him in the way he worships Hashem. All over the generations, Jews have been mocked by the way they worship Hashem, by our clothes, by our beards, by our sideburns, the hair that we have growing either behind our ears or in front of our ears, by our language, by our lust, and not only lust, but desire to cling to the Holy Torah and being willing to dedicate our life to learn the Holy Torah, even foregoing different things, not going to university, not necessarily learning and getting a degree. Again, I'm not saying this is suitable for everyone, but I'm talking about this as an ideology. We have always been mocked. We've always been put aside. Anti-Semitism, which we already read in the Megillah of Purim, which we just now had the festival of Purim, Haman came and said to the king Achashverosh, the people of Israel are divided and separate and different from anyone else. The Ramah says, do not be embarrassed from those who mock you. And this is coming to teach us that one of the most important things that we need as Jews is to have a spine, to have the courage and the guts and the ability to stand up proudly and say, yes, I am a God-fearing Jew. Yes, I am a from Jew who keeps the Torah and keeps Hashem's commandments. I'm not embarrassed. I shan't back down. I shan't relent, nor shall I give up on my ideologies. And I'd like to give you a few stories and a few ideas to understand this in maybe even a better way. The Gemara in Tractate Chulin on the 51st page, and this is brought also in the Shulchan Aruch in Part Yeridea in chapter 58 on the 7th section. The Gemara there speaks about different aspects of non-kosher animals. And the Gemara there, now we're talking here mostly about meat, poultry, and we're talking about different kind of livestock. The Gemara there says that one of the non-kosher animals is an animal who, even though it could be kosher and you could eat it, an animal is called a nefula. What is a nefula? It's an animal that fell from a very high distance and smashed on the ground. Now, we're afraid that maybe it broke its bones, maybe the bones punctured the heart, punctured the liver, and thus this animal is rendered non-kosher. We're not allowed to eat it. The Gemara there says there are different ways of checking whether the animal is still intact, whether all its bones and all its internal limbs, its internal organs, where everything is still functioning properly. And one of the ways to check it is if, for example, we're talking here about poultry, for example, we're talking here about a duck or a goose, put them in the river and see if they're able to swim upstream against the flow. If they're powerful enough to swim against the flow, that means that everything is intact, that the animal is healthy, and indeed it is kosher and it is edible. Our sages say that this is an example. Even though the Gemara is now speaking about halachic aspects, this is also a very deep moral idea. We need to learn how to swim upstream, against the flow. Being a Jew means that we believe in our way. We believe in our God. We believe in our Torah. We believe in our sages. And we follow their path, even though it seems that we're swimming upstream and we are going against the path of the Western world. That is having a spine, being strong in our faith. One of the most famous scientists who lived 500 years ago was known as Copernicus. Copernicus was an astronomer. He was also a priest, and he at his time was one of the first people who completely disagreed with a common scientific theory in those times, which was the heliocentric theory. The heliocentric theory said that, the geocentric theory. The geocentric theory said that Earth was in the middle of the universe and all the other planets, including the sun, surrounded it. Copernicus built a small observatory, and from his findings, he saw that the geocentric theory is completely wrong. The correct theory is the heliocentric theory. The sun is in the middle of our universe, of our solar system, and the planets rotate around the sun, not rotate around the Earth. But Copernicus was petrified. He was afraid of publishing his ideas while he was alive. He was afraid that the church would render him as a heretic, an infidel, would burn him at the stake. So what he did is he asked to postpone publishing his books until he was on his deathbed. And just before his death, he gave permission to publish his works. Why? Because he was so afraid to stand for what he believed in his life. That is not our ideology. We do not want to be Copernicus. In our lives, we want to stand strong for what we believe in. I'm going to give you another story to understand how when we do this, this causes people to respect us. This causes people to appreciate us, and it doesn't cause them, as we may think, to disrespect us or even to mock us. This is a story about the previous chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Lord Emanuel Jacobovich of blessed memory. Rabbi Lord Emanuel Jacobovich, this is a famous story that was published all over the world. He was invited once to a banquet in the Buckingham Palace by the late Queen and the current king, who was then the prince, the heir to the throne, Prince Charles. Rabbi Jacobovich explained to the royal house and to the royal family that he has a bit of a problem. He can't really come to a royal banquet because the food that's served there is not kosher. And not only that, but the cutlery and the crockery are also don't stand according to the halachic specifications of being kosher kalim. Kosher cutlery and crockery was also immersed in water to make them usable for frum Jews. The royal palace said to him, Rabbi, no problem. We are really, really interested, and it's important for us that you participate in this banquet. We'll make sure that the food is absolutely strictly kosher. We're going to order it from the most severe catering, who has the most severe and strict kashrus specifications for you to eat. Not only that, we're going to buy for you a completely new set of cutlery and crockery, and we are going to do everything necessary to make sure it's kosher. No one will notice it, but at the back, we're going to put a small sticker which says on it kosher, so you'll know what to use and not to get mixed up with other cutlery or crockery. Okay? Rabbi Lord Jacobovich said, thank you very much, I appreciate it. I'll be delighted to participate in this banquet. And he did so. But it seems that in the English palace, in Buckingham Palace, they have a very interesting custom. They have their several courses. It's not like our standard meal. It's about 6, 7, 8 courses. After every course, everyone gets up, the plates and all the cutlery are taken off. Everyone switches places so that everyone gets to sit next to new people and people get to mingle together. Now, Rabbi Jacobovich had a problem. He can't just get up and allow them to take his cutlery and his crockery because he needs them in order to eat. So after every single dish was served, after every time they switched places, everyone sees Rabbi Lord Jacobovich taking his plates, taking everything that he has, piling it up with him, and walking around with everything to the new seat. And of course, when you look at it, this looks very weird. But Rabbi Jacobovich was not embarrassed whatsoever. This is what the Torah says. This is the halachic demand. This is what he is going to do. He did this 7 or 8 times, and everyone noticed that every time that he got up, he took with him all his cutlery and his crockery and walked from place to place. Now, of course, this looked odd, and some people asked, and he explained. Among the people who were invited to the banquet was also another Jew who was not from, and it bothered him to see this behavior. He thought that this is not mannered, this is not polite, this is not proper, and he voiced his opinion very loudly. At the end of the meal, the Queen and the Prince Charles, then he was Prince, they asked Rabbi Jacobovich to come over to them. Prince Charles has always been known as a great lover of the Jewish people. He is a real good friend to the Jewish people, and we'd like to send him from here our best wishes for his healing. He's been found sick. May he be healed soon. He has always been a good friend to the Jewish people in England. They invited him over, Rabbi Lord Jacobovich, and they started asking him why was he walking around with his cutlery and with his crockery, and he explained to them about the Torah's demands of eating kosher and all the kashrus specifications and how it regards cutlery and crockery and why couldn't he use a new set. And they were very impressed and they asked more questions. The non-frum Jew who was standing aside, it bothered him that the queen and the prince were paying so much attention to a frum person, to Rabbi Jacobovich. So he pushed in and he said, I'm also Jewish. We behave differently. Prince Charles looked at him and said to him, if you're Jewish, where was your cutlery and crockery? Why didn't you walk around with it? So that means you're not really Jewish. Now this response was published all over the world, and it caused a great Kiddush Hashem. It sanctified the name of Hashem because it showed that even non-Jews could understand that when a Jew proudly stands for his faith, that means that he is Jewish. That means that he cares about what Judaism, what the Holy Torah tells us. And this is what we are supposed to learn from these stories. We are proud Jews. We don't need to be embarrassed or deterred from anyone that tells us, don't follow your path, don't learn Torah, don't stay to yourself secluded. No, we love everyone. We're constantly trying to outreach and to explain the beauty of the Torah, the beauty of Emunah to the world. But we live the way that Hashem wants us to live. And it makes no difference what anyone is going to say to us. It's not going to deter us. Even those who mock us are not going to make us turn back from our way that we have chosen to follow Hashem's commandments. We are going to stay learning Torah. We are going to be immersed in Torah. We're going to keep our uniqueness irrelevant to all the different foreign winds that are blowing on around us. And I'd like to end this class with three beautiful parables. Today, the 21st day of Adar Bet in year 5784 is a very special day. This is the passing day of one of the greatest Hasidic lights that shone in the world, Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk of blessed memory, who passed away today 237 years ago. There is a fascinating story which is brought in the book Aleinu L'Shabech by the great Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein. May he have a long life and great health. It is brought there on the segment of the Torah in Vayechi. He tells there a story that he himself heard from Rabbi Raphael David Auerbach. Rabbi Raphael David Auerbach was the son of one of the greatest Torah sages of the previous generation, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Their father, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's and Rabbi Raphael David, their father was named Rabbi Chaim Leib Auerbach. He was one of the great Torah sages who resided here in Yerushalayim, and he founded one of the most special yeshivas that learned Kabbalah, the inner world of Judaism, a yeshiva called Sha'ar HaShamayim. Their father told them that when he was a young man, he went to Tiberias. Why did he go to Tiberias? In Tiberias, there was a 95-year-old Jew who himself he was an older person. He himself, when he was a younger man, went several times for Shabbos to spend it in Lizhensk and to hear Rabbi Elimelech speaking over Shabbos. This is a Jew who actually saw Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk. Rabbi Chaim Leib Auerbach was so fascinated, he went to Tiberias to meet this older person who was then 95 years old in order to hear from him all the different impressions and things that he heard from one of the great Torah sages of previous generations, Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk of blessed memory. This older Jew in Tiberias told him that Rabbi Elimelech, every single third meal on Shabbos, which is called in Hebrew the Shalosh Shudas, the third meal on the day of Sabbath, he used to give Torah, he used to give a Torah shiur. The Torah shiur was divided into two parts. The first part dealt about the redemption and Messiah, and the second part spoke about actual messages that we learn from that week's Torah segment. He told Rabbi Chaim Leib 12 stories and parables that he heard from Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk. Rabbi Chaim Leib told this to his sons, but unfortunately, Rabbi Raphael David only remembered 3 of them, 3 parables which regard the days of Messiah. And those 3 parables he told on to Rabbi Chaim, he told to Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, who brought them in his book Aleinu L'Shabech. And we're going to tell you these 3 parables, and you're going to see it's fascinating how these Torah sages were so holy, they saw what's going to come, and things that are so relevant to today, things that are so relevant to what we are now going through, especially now with this decree of the High Court here in Israel saying that you're not allowed to postpone your RV service because learning Torah in their eyes is not important enough, and the government is not allowed to finance the yeshivas, and stipends are not allowed to be given, completely disconnecting the state of Israel from learning Torah, heavens forbid. The first parable. Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk said that in the days right before Messiah shall be coming, those who are God-fearing Jews, those who are from Jews, shall be trampled and stepped upon in such a harsh way that if they lived 200 years ago, 250 years ago, in the times of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, they wouldn't have been able to cope with the way they're being treated. But unfortunately, since now, during the days of Messiah's coming, people are so obtuse and people are have much thicker skin also spiritually. So even though they're trampled upon, even though they are mistreated, nevertheless, they keep going. This is exactly what's happening to us. The state of Israel trampled the world of Torah, disrespected the world of Torah. We can even use harsher words, but I don't want to do that. And nevertheless, even though we're talking about something which is terrible when we're looking at it as a spiritual outlook, we're continuing. We're continuing because we have become much more obtuse than 250 years ago. But it just shows us how 250 years ago, Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk knew exactly what was going to happen, that we shall be trampled upon, which is exactly what happened today. The second parable. There is a concept which is called Chevlei Mashiach, the strings of Messiah. Rabbi Elimelech has explained what is going to happen in the after days. He said a parable, Hashem is going to tie and stretch a rope from one end of the world to the other end. A very, very tight rope. And everyone is going to hold on to that rope. And then Hashem is going to start shaking that rope. Many people shall fall. And not only that, the fools are going to say, if Hashem is shaking the rope so hard, that means he doesn't want us to hang on. So they're going to open their hands, let go, and they're going to fall down. Very few are going to manage to grasp and hold on to the rope and not let go. And those are going to be the very few who are going to hold on to their emunah, to their faith, to their belief in Hashem. Because in the future times to come, before the times of Messiah, the trial of emunah is going to be so difficult. Many Jews are going to let go. Many Jews are going to fall along the way and are not going to follow the way they should. Rabbi Nachman of Breslev says the exact same thing in his book Sichot Haran in section 35. He says there that in the times to come, right before Messiah, there shall be such great heresy in the world. It will be like climbing a slippery wall. Such great heresy that very few shall grasp on to their emunah. And he said, I'm saying this to you so that you know what's going to come. This is a situation that we are now in. All of our sages are telling us we are now in a generation called Ikveta de Mashiach, the footsteps of Messiah. Messiah's coming. You can smell him. You can hear him. You can nearly see him. And this has now become a very difficult time, grasping onto our emunah, grasping onto our faith. We're constantly being told to leave our ways and to follow the ways of the Western world. Take up smartphones, connect to the internet, go to universities, stop learning Torah, don't be so strict on keeping the mitzvahs. Why do you have to wear a black yarmulke? Why can't you wear a smaller one, a different colored one? Why do you have to look so old-fashioned in your clothes? Why do we have to have tzitzis, these strings hanging out from our clothes, and so on and so on? This is a time which Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk said, this is what's called the strings of Messiah. That string that Hashem stretches from one side of the world to the other and shakes it. And it is our job now not to fall from the rope, not to lose our grasp, to grasp on and to know we're really close. This is the last stage, the most difficult one. Do not be deterred from all these different trials that are coming upon us. Don't be afraid. Don't fear. Hashem is with us. All these things are just parts of the shaking of the rope that Hashem is shaking. This is exactly what's happening now with the High Court of Israel's verdict, saying that anyone who learns Torah now, it is illegal. You're not allowed to finance the Torah world. You're not allowed to learn Torah. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. This is the shaking of the rope. And those of us who know this, who are strong enough and smart enough and have enough emunah, are going to stay grasping on to our way, to our Torah, to our sages, to their guidance without being deterred. The third parable, he said, the way we're living today is very similar to what happens when a person is now taking a sieve and he is trying to clear the flour, clean the flour from the clean flour and all the waste that remains, which he wants to cast out. Now, what do you do with a sieve? You put all the flour in the sieve and you start shaking it. Now, as you shake it, you put beneath it some kind of bowl. All the clean flour falls down into the bowl and all the waste remains on top of the sieve. Now, what happens is, as we're shaking the sieve, the flour and the waste are all bashed against the sides, the walls of the sieve itself. They're bashed and they're hit. And this is what helps separate them. And eventually the clean flour falls through the holes into the bowl and the waste remains on top. Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk gave this parable. The waste that's on the top sees the clean flour falling and it starts mocking it. And it says to the clean flour, the waste says to the clean flour, look, you fell again. You fell down into the bowl. You were hit. You were banged again against the sides of the bowl, and we remain on top. We were not banged. We did not fall through the holes. We are better than you. That is what the waste says to the clean flour. But what the waste doesn't realize is that soon the person who owns the sieve is going to take all the waste that remains in the sieve and is going to cast it out into the dustbin. And all he's going to take and all that's going to remain and all that he really cares about is the clean flour left in the bowl. Meaning that falling into the bowl, being banged again and falling to a lower place than the sieve is the blessing of the clean flour. Says Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, this is exactly what's going to happen before the days of Messiah. Hashem is going to use us like a sieve, separating the clean flour from the waste. And those heretics, those evil people who shall remain at the top of the sieve shall mock us, the clean flour, which we are the God-fearing people, the people who preserve, who guard Hashem's Torah and Hashem's commandments. They're going to say to us, look, you're fallen down. We're more powerful than you. We're in control. We're sitting in higher positions in the state. We are the ones who are ruling. We are the ones who are governing you. We are the ones who are taking out judgments and verdicts against you. Look, you're so lowly. Look at you, have you fallen into the bowl and you've been banged again by the sides of the bowl. And what these people don't realize, that Hashem is doing this in order to cleanse us. And eventually Hashem is going to take all these people who have fought against him, who fought against the Torah, is going to cast them aside. We're praying for them to do tshuva. We're praying for them to find the right path. But if they don't manage to do that, they're going to be cast aside because they're not who Hashem wants. Hashem is going to want the clean flour, those who hang on to his Torah, to his commandments, to learning the Torah, to listening to the Torah sages, to guarding the way of our forefathers, whether it is the way we look, dress, think, speak, act, and learn Torah. And the clean flour, that is eventually what Hashem is going to want. And this is exactly what's happening now. So all of you, my brothers and my sisters, who feel that you have fallen down into the bowl, that you've been banged, that the people who are currently on top are mocking you and mocking your lifestyle, saying to you, look at what's happened to you. Do not fear. This is exactly what Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk said. This falling, the fact that they're in power and we seem to be at the bottom of the bowl, this is for our benefit because this is helping Hashem separate us from them and eventually taking all the clean flour in order to use us to await for the times of the coming redemption and the times of Messiah. We are blessed to live in such a generation where we see these parables of Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk manifesting, how we're being trampled upon, how Hashem is shaking the rope, and how Hashem is separating the waste from the clean flour. And even though we seem to be in the bottom of the bowl, banged again. Do not fear. Do not be deterred. Remember how we started this class. We must be proud of who we are. We must have a strong spine, swimming against the flow, not fearing, being like Rabbi Lord Jacobovitz, who did not fear in Buckingham Palace and ran around between serving and serving with his plates, with his cutlery and crockery, and did not fear what anyone said. Because we love Hashem. We love the Torah. We love his commandments. And we are praying that nothing is going to ever separate us from him. And with that love, with us keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs, we shall live to see the redemption and the coming of Messiah soon and speedily in our days. Amen. Thank you very much for being with us. קשובים לשיעור. מה?